gentlemen, please welcome your host, Mr. Sydney Roundwood.
And welcome to this, the TooFatLardies Oddcast. And this evening, I'm joined by the Romeo and Juliet of wargaming, Nick Skinner and Richard Clark. Gentlemen, welcome back to the Oddcast, and belated though it may be, a very happy New Year to you both.
And to you, Sydney.
Happy New Year.
It's been a long time since we were clustered around the fire roasting our chestnuts before Christmas.
I think the fact of opening our advent calendar took so much out of us.
That was good fun. I enjoyed doing that, and I enjoyed listening to
revealing all sorts of secrets about ourselves.
Wow.
Through the medium of the advent calendar. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. That was good. But here we are, New Year, and in fact, almost at Valentine's Day. Which is obviously a big time of the year for all gentlemen and ladies. But let's not digress to that too much. And instead, chaps, tell me, what have you been up to since we last met?
Oh, busy. What about you, Nicholas?
Okay, so I've been busy. What have I been doing? Well, we went to Crusade.
We did. Went to Crusade at Penarth.
Let's talk about that. It's the opener for the year, so we should talk about that probably.
Yeah, great show. Good fun. Took infamy there. I ran 3 great games of that. Really worked hard all day running 3 games, and you did nothing.
I didn't. Well, I hung around with my adoring fans, and there was a burger van outside that did some rather nice half pounder with cheese and bacon. It had you could get some sort of doubled up burgers, sausage baps. Very nice. It was some lovely things there. No, but I enjoyed.
That was good actually. That was particularly good to know, as I never got an opportunity to have anything for lunch.
But I did enjoy wandering around the show, looking at some of the other games. There were other games, other Lardy games there, and also the standard of games is high as always, and it seemed to have a buzz about it. Traders seemed to be doing good business. It's a nice start to the year. Great that so many people came to see us and hang out with our game. A lot of the Lardies came around at lunchtime and had a bit of a Lardy fest around the table. And I got to play some Chain of Command. I played Chain of Command with Matt Slade and the guys who were doing a 1940 game in France. That was good fun, really nice. Using Jeff Bond's Ham and Jam buildings.
Nice buildings, aren't they? Lovely looking table.
Smart. So nice to play that. And Richard was doing all the hard work.
So you were, Richard, you were running Infamy?
Infamy.
And that was what was that? The first public outing of that game?
It was. It's the first public outing in the game, and just to be different, we did Romans versus Romans. We did 64 AD, Roman Year of the Four Emperors, and we had the forces of Vitellius against the forces of Otho in the region of Cremona in northern Italy. We had a couple of foraging parties out from both sides. Really good fun. One of the things I like about that particular period is the diversity of the troops. You tend to think of Romans versus Romans as being legion against legion. Well, on the forces of Otho's side, we had some Praetorian guardsmen, and with them was a unit of gladiators who'd been pressed into military service, which is, historically the case. Absolutely great fun, putting them up against Rapax, the legion there on the Vitellian side. Really good fun, and it's interesting when we play testing games. Well, certainly with Infamy, obviously the classic thing is Romans against barbarians, but you also have to take into account there's so many other options. So, for example, I've got a slave rebellion army with some gladiators scattered in there. So there's so many different funky little forces that you can have, which are quite fun as well. And the nice thing about it is that it's a pretty looking game, because you can have your little Roman villa and the olive groves and the vineyards on the hills, and I just thought it looked a bit prettier for the first outing than just having a load of dark Germanic forests and swamps.
The game looked fantastic from the photos that I saw, and I think that was something which really did catch the eye, that it looked very Italian and really interesting sort of mix of different forces. And that's what people enjoy with Ancients, isn't it?
It is.
The variety and the different types of, not just different types of troops, but different ways in which they fought.
It was good fun, and I think it's important when play testing to take the rules out and show it to people, because the rules are not complete. We are still very much in play testing. We've got the whole structure of the rules ready. We know that the structure works, the core key concepts work, but we're still very much at tweaking stage. We're tuning the engine, if you like. The engine is built, but we're tuning it to get it running right. So sometimes it can be a bit daring to take a set of rules out at this stage, because people go, "Ooh, that's not quite balanced." But I think it's more important to get the feedback from people. So that's really exciting.
Well, which of course I did. So we've got some feedback from people that played the game at Crusade on that Saturday afternoon.
Through the magic of Lardcast, why don't we take you there now, mate?
Now I'll tell you all a story about some lads I know, were known throughout the valleys as the Pontypool front row. It's got a little chorus, and that chorus you all know. So tell me, are you ready? Yeah! Up and under, here we go.
Right. Here we are. It's just gone 0500 hours. Literally.
Silly o'clock.
It's dark both sides of my eyelids. And the car is telling you that you're veering out of the carriageway.
That's right.
So are you asleep or are you awake?
Just about asleep. Fortunately, the car's keeping it in lane for me.
Okay. And now my memory tells me, and I can also see on the sat-nav, that we are going to Wales today. But not just any part of Wales. We're going to Penarth. Home of
Crusade, and not any Crusade. Crusade 2020.
The
optician show, as we like to call it. It's the first show of the year. Crusade in Penarth is always one of our favourites. So we're very much looking forward to seeing quite a crowd down there today. We've got people coming to see us all the way from Cornwall, and a lot of guys from the West Country making the trip across the bridge into Wales, and of course all the guys from the valleys streaming down in their little chariots to say hi. So looking forward to it
as well. Midlands and West Midlands people seeping across, coming down into Wales.
It is without doubt Wales's biggest war game show, and the new venue that they have at the school there is bright and airy, and with lots of space.
And it has a burger van outside.
And it has a great burger van outside, which is really, my sat-nav is set for the burger van, not the school.
Do you reckon that guy goes away having made the best day's trading of anybody at the show? I reckon he might.
I think you're probably right, actually.
And we're still, of course, deep in Baconuary.
We are really deep in Baconuary.
So I hope he's well supplied.
Yeah. I mean, I love his baps.
Yeah,
he's always got great baps there and good bacon. So I'm really keen to get one of them under my belt, literally.
Now we know there are going to be some guys there playing sharp practice.
Yeah.
So we'll try and check in with them.
Chain of command. Some guys called Nick or something. Nick, Neil, Nigel's. It begins with an N. I think it's the multiple Nicks, or the two Nicks or something they're called, doing sharp practice, which sounds really good. That's a Napoleonic name.
Nick,
probably.
Right.
And
that sounds good. We'll try and check in with them.
Yeah.
And then we know that Matt Slade is going to be there running some chain of command.
He's all crazy now. He'll be there, Matt Slade. And they're doing chain of command with Welsh Chef.
Yeah.
Hi, Welsh Jeff. Everybody likes to say hi to Welsh Jeff. Now Meeples has gone. We need to pick up the baton and say hi to Welsh Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello,
Jeff. Now we've got in the back. We haven't got Sydney this time.
No.
I thought it was quiet.
Yeah.
And I thought I couldn't feel anything poking me in the back.
Sydney is fulfilling his manorial duties at Roundwood Towers. I believe a new contingent of peasants are being sworn in to take the oath to the Lord of the Manor, so he's obviously had to be there for that.
When I say things poking me in the back, by the way, I was talking about his knees in the back of the chair before anybody.
Well, that's the other manorial duty he likes to.
Before you write in and complain. But we're not doing chain of command.
No.
And we are not doing sharp practice.
No.
What are we doing? What have we got in for the people of Wales?
Well, infamy, we've all got it in for them.
Yes.
We are unveiling for the very first time infamy at any national UK show. We have had it out at Steel Lard, but the rules have come on a bit since then. That was early doors playtesting. Now this is the first time out in a public show, and we've only just won the race to achieve that in Penarth, because John Savage from the playtest group is going to be unveiling it at Vapnatak in York next weekend. So we hope to hear from them as to how they get on. But yeah, we're really looking forward to taking it out. John's doing Romans against Britons.
Yep.
We're doing something a bit different. It's the summer of 69. The year AD 69, of course, the year of the 4 emperors, and we have the forces of Otho against the forces of Vitellius, with some really nice little cameo roles from the Praetorian Guard, a bunch of boozy gladiators, and the army of Germany, which is coming down near Cremona, and we've got 2 parties going out to find supplies in the local countryside who clash. So that should be really fun. I'm really looking forward to getting that out on the table for the first time.
So the idea is that it's a taster. We're going to be playing 3 or maybe even 4 games during the day.
Yeah, I'm hoping the games will take about an hour each, and I'm hoping to get in 3 or 4. We'll see how it goes. It's one of those things that you see how long your batteries last. It's like the Rabbit. You hope you got the Duracells in and not the cheap versions, and you can keep banging away all day.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so we've got AD 69 then. So
yeah, back in the summer.
Yeah, with the 4 emperors. I think is that a pizza?
You could have a 4 emperors pizza. Yeah.
Right.
So
Okay.
a big time of strife and civil war in the Empire.
Yeah, so we'll check in. I'm going to try and speak to some of the guys who play the game.
Yeah.
And see if they'll share some of their thoughts and feedback with us, and we can put that on the Oddcast.
Yes, that would be good to hear what people have to say about it.
Yeah, so we'll hopefully bring you some of that in a moment.
Up and under, here we go. Are you ready? Yes or no? Up and under, here we go. It's the song of front row.
Right, okay, so here we are. Game 1 has been played. We've had Carol and Jeff who've been playing it with a couple of other people who have come and gone, I think. So tell me, Carol, you played the game. How did you get on?
Well, I came second.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Out of 2?
Out of 2, yes. And that's primarily because I couldn't get across the River Po. So literally, I was stuck in the Po.
And was that because of the efforts of Nasty Jeff here?
Yes, I think it was. Jeff had a sort of like a very clever idea of getting his troops a long way down the table very quickly, burning his advantage cards.
Okay, yeah.
And I didn't foresee that, so I was caught on the hop.
Jeff, you're the winner then. That makes you number 1.
It makes a change, doesn't it? Makes a change, yeah. Number 1 for how long will it be now? An hour before somebody else wins, and you just forget about me then, Nick?
We'll
start interviewing
we'll
someone
just
else.
burn you and move on to somebody else.
Yeah, I was fortunate in being able to grasp the card concept early on, and I used those cards to get the troops up the table as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And then Carol had all the work to do to get across that 4. Then, well, my gladiators went in and stole the cart, so that's how I won.
Okay, so now Carol, you played Sharp Practice, haven't you?
Yes,
quite a lot.
Yeah, I would say
And
so.
you've spoken on the Oddcast before as well about, I think, playing Sharp Practice.
Yes.
How did you find Infamy? Because there's similarities, but there's differences.
Very much so. I think with all Lardy games, the problem is in your mind you tend to confuse things. So it was a case of trying to disengage from Sharp Practice and just treat this as what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, forget the fact you've got false morale tables that look the same and everything. You just go in there, forget about what you know, and then treat it on its own terms. And I think it works very well.
Jeff, what about you? How did you get on?
Yeah, I played a fair bit of Sharp Practice. There's familiarities. You feel like it's a totally different game than when you're playing it. I think in this little 1 game experience here, there's going to be a lot more melee, a lot more fighting, and shooting is not as effective, obviously, as in the Black Powder period.
Yeah. So you had some archers.
Yep. Yeah, and they were more or less targeting each other. They were, so there was a sort of. They didn't have much of an effect on the close order infantry.
I think what it shows is that archers are probably going to be good against your standard naked savages from the wet forest of the north.
Right. Or Yorkshire, as we might call them.
Yeah. We haven't said that actually. It was a Roman v Roman battle.
Roman versus Romans.
But against armoured troops with shields, it's the archers are quite ineffective.
So were the forces quite well matched in this? Then did you have the similar force each side?
Similar, yeah. I mean, it would have been nice if I could have got my legionaries or even my auxiliaries up against the gladiators, because I think they would have seen them off. But the problem was the river, which shows the importance of I think in ancient warfare, and I think it shows the importance in this game of finding a defensible place where you have the advantage.
Yeah. And when you're up against Caesar, it's hard to win. So masterminded another victory.
I wasn't going to mention generalship.
I think it's fair to say that Caesar made dog meat out of it.
What I will say,
go on.
When you edit this, can you make me sound intelligent, please?
Well, you sound Welsh, Jeff. That's
Mission Impossible.
That's all you've got. You've got the voice that will charm the pants off of anybody. Okay, so thank you for playing.
Yes.
It
was nice to
hope and glad that you hope you enjoyed it, and I think you did, and I'm glad that you did. So you're going to go off and spend some money now, are you?
Very much so. I hope to buy some auxiliary plastic cavalry to go with my auxiliary plastic infantry ready
nice
for when I get the rules.
And you've been painting some ancients, Jeff. I saw on Twitter.
And funnily enough, I'm looking for some cavalry as well to bolster that force. So,
okay. Well, you better go to the main hall and spend your pennies. But thank you very much for stopping by with us, and speak to you again next time, no doubt.
Certainly will. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Now then, we've just finished another game of Infamy, and who have we got it in for now? It's none other than Ralph Guitterati himself. Hello, Ralph.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
I'm all right. You've just played Infamy.
I have just played Infamy.
And tell us, what has it got in for you?
It's got nothing in for me because we won.
Blimey. Were you playing the Romans or the Romans?
We were playing the Romans in this one.
Oh, good.
Against the Romans. We were playing the Roman army.
Yes.
Against the Roman gladiators.
Yes.
And Praetorians. And I let somebody else roll my dice. And it was very successful.
Good. And you played Sharp Practice, and you played other larger games.
Yeah.
How did you find your first go at Infamy?
Well, there are similarities, obviously, with Sharp Practice. I don't know if that was because Rich was keeping it quite simple for a show like this, for people who haven't played any Lardy games before.
Yes,
and it worked very well. There are differences. Obviously, you've got armour involved, and you've got a lot of different abilities to spend your flags on. But it's very familiar to anybody.
And you've got flags in your hand
games.
at the start of your turn.
That's right. You start with a full hand, so you can choose whether to spend them to get in and get stuck in early, or whether to wait until later when your opponents decide to get stuck in with you. It gives you that extra choice, and of course when you spend them they go back in the deck and you can use them later as well as they come out.
Right, okay. So, exciting.
Very exciting.
I'm going to put words in your mouth. It's very exciting. You love playing
it. The combat actually swung both ways. I mean, there were times when I thought we were done for and we were going to lose, but in the end we pulled through. It was it was very good, very exciting.
Good. Look, so here we are loitering in the corridor. And do you see who this is over here? Look.
They look like celebrities.
Now let's put the voices on and see if we can guess who they are. Hello, for the benefit of the tape, could you speak so we can hear your voices?
Hello, it is us.
Who are you? And who are you?
All right.
So one of them is looks like he could be from Wales, wearing a small pointy hat and with a little magic wand.
Oh.
And the other one looks like he's from the West Midlands, and he's only about 3 foot tall. So we found the Brummy Dwarf and the Welsh Wizard, Mike Hobbs and Neil Shook. You come to Crusade and you're enjoying a show a game out together. The pair of you in one place enjoying yourselves.
Would you believe this is my first ever Crusade?
Really?
I've never been here before.
What do you make of it?
I really like it. Because of the venue, it's a little bit rabbit warming-y.
Yeah.
Which I suppose it kind of harps back to when shows were more like this and less like appearing under one big roof.
Yeah. Enough traders here though to keep you happy?
Yes.
Yeah, you happy? You spent loads of money already, I bet.
I spent a bit. I bought some tumbling dice planes for my second favourite game of all time, which is Bag the Hun.
Which is Bag the Hun.
The great thing is that because
second favourite.
Second favourite, yeah. Second favourite.
Second favourite. Didn't get to the top.
It's like being second favourite wife, isn't it?
Yeah.
Second favourite.
You're my mistress.
I'm not offended. Second favourite game. Sorry, Neil. Go on.
No, it's right. The great thing is that, especially coming to a show that you do not normally come to, is you end up seeing things in the flesh that you haven't seen before. So, for example, this is the first ever time I have seen Charlie Foxtrot in the flesh.
Right.
Because he normally goes to shows that I don't normally attend. So it's little things like that, and it's like seeing Bear's Head miniatures in the flesh as opposed to just either through my letterbox or on the internet and things like this. So that's the great thing about coming to shows that that you don't normally frequent, because you will always come across those people who you've never met before. We've seen this for a company called R3 that do 10 mil. That do 10 mil vehicles.
Oh yeah, beautiful 10 mil vehicles. Beautiful. I mean, I'm looking and thinking, but is it? I ain't been nuked, mum.
Yeah, and Neil's sitting around saying 10 mil. It's the one scale you don't do in World War II. Isn't it?
That is very true. They do have some 10 mil World War II, and it's gorgeous.
Mixed traders, aren't they? Because there's lots of small. The big boys. Yeah. Some of them are here, but there's also lots of space for smaller businesses to carve a niche.
Yeah.
Of course, because they concentrate a lot on post-war. Well, they do World War II to 1989.
Yeah.
So I mean, they got some very nice Vietnam stuff, which already got me. Because I'm looking at my. I think we're chatting to you, thinking, about time I got my Charlie Don't Stir stuff out in 10 mil. Thinking, they got some very nice stuff for 10 mil Vietnam. Very nice stuff indeed.
It's a lovely little show, though.
Well, it's your local show as well.
It is my local show. It's the biggest show in Wales.
Yes. And it gets the year off to a great start.
It does.
It does.
And there's reenactors here.
Yes.
So we've seen Vikings. We've got Napoleonic reenactors here. There's somebody walking around dressed as an American MP.
I'm not sure if he's a reenactor or whether he's just here
because he likes to.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever.
And it's got your old bunch, isn't it?
My old bunch are here. The 41st foot. God bless them.
And indeed, we have seen photographic evidence on their stand of Mr. Hobbs in full uniform.
Yes, it's a bit like playing Spot the Ball, wasn't it? Trying to.
Where's
trying
Wally?
To spot him in that photo. Yeah. Well, we found you. We did find you. That was good.
And we are assured that in the photos you are not stood on a box.
So we're going to see you more at shows this year. Is that you think that's going to be? You're going to be able to get focused and get out and be at some more shows this year?
That's the plan. Yeah.
Get out and enjoy the hobby rather than reporting about it all the time.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, looking forward to that. And again, it's running into people. So you get stupid things like having known Gareth Beamish.
Yes. ADC painting
on Twitter for years.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've met him.
Right.
And of course, it's because I'm at somewhere that I don't really come to. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So just and that for me again is what show's all about. Yeah. It's coming out, meeting people, and running into people who, because as I say, it's these people we chat to online all the time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's putting faces to names, and it's been great. Really enjoyed it.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for talking to us, gentlemen. Go and spend some more money.
Thank you, Nick.
And we'll hopefully bump into you again sometime on the circuit.
That'd be good.
With a song of the Pontapool,
a great piece of recording, and I can tell from that recording, what you've been talking about, and also Twitter, that you've been really, really busy with Infamy. But I think it would be unfair to say that's all you've been doing, because there's some other things in the pipeline as well.
Yeah, very much so. The Far East Handbook is now at layout stage, so I'm cracking on with that, which is really exciting. I'm really pleased with what we've got there, so that's going to be great to get that produced and out. It's Jungle Warfare's hard work, and it's involved an awful lot of play testing. I noted a thread on the internet in one of the chat rooms the other day with people saying about how the rules deal with jungle warfare, and it's really, really difficult to get it right. There's a big difference between, let's say, the jungles of Papua New Guinea, Borneo, which are thick jungles covering huge acreage of ground, and let's say, for example, Malaya, where you've actually got more like clumps of jungle taking up in some areas. So it's a case of defining whether we're talking about warfare in an area which is jungle, or whether we're talking about warfare where there is some jungle terrain in amongst other terrain. So that's involved a lot of play testing, but I'm really pleased with what we've achieved there with Len down in Australia from the Australian Army Jungle Warfare school. So he's had fabulous input, and it's been great to work with him. And Ed in North America, who's got a great interest in the period as well. So that's coming along, and of course O Group with Rise of Its Press, our sister company. Yeah. We've got O Group at the point where I'm actually just doing a final read through, and that's going to go out to the layout to get the layout done, and we're hoping to have that out very soon. World War II battalion level.
I was just going to ask what O Group is, but you've already mentioned, and that is by our good friend Dave Brown.
Indeed, in many ways, yeah, that's right. The godfather of wargaming, housewife's favourite, Dave Brown.
Fantastic. Well, we enjoyed Dave's other rules, so we'll all be looking forward to that, I think.
Well, do you know what? Through a little bit of Lardy magic, we can go and talk to Dave right now.
Oh my gosh.
I tracked him down to one of his haunts in the seedier side of Covent Garden in London, and we can join him there now to have a little bit of a chat about O Group.
So we're here in Rules Restaurant in the heart of Covent Garden in Lard, and we are meeting our good chum, friend of Lard, Dave Brown. Dave.
Hello,
Housewife's favourite.
Housewife's favourite. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you all.
And enjoy a glass of gin and tonic with
lovely.
you, sir.
Look. Oh, look at that. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
And we're here also to talk about O Group.
Oh, are we?
Oh, are we? What is O Group?
O Group is a new set of World War II rules from Rise of Its Press, which is based at battalion level. And just to clarify that point, because it's always a bit confusing, is battalion level is you field a battalion plus supports and support assets against a fellow opponent who's also fielding a battalion with support assets, such as tanks, guns, the usual stuff, heavy weapons, etc., etc.
And what scale is this? What scale are you playing it at the moment?
You can play it in 20mm or 15s. Richard over there has branched out, yes, into 12mm.
So what makes O Group different?
What I found with many rules, which are fine, is that they tend to concentrate on weapons, weapon firepower or rate of fire, or armour thickness. The core of their
technological sort of stuff
appears to be about shooting, and not much was given over to command. So I went down the line of I prefer a game where you'd have more on command and concentrate your tactical decision making on commands and worry less about rate of fire, tank armour, etc. Not to say that that's not in there, it is, but that's not really what you're concentrating on. The decisions for the player are what orders or actions are you going to give to your platoons and units.
And how are you able to sort of replicate that command sort of matrix? Are you doing chits or cards or?
Yeah, I mean each turn there's a roll of dice that will give you a set number of orders. Without going into too much detail, basically you'll get a core number of orders that you can issue to your platoons, and so that allows you to issue certain actions. And if you're familiar with Pickett's Charge or General Darmay, those rules have a list of taskings which cost a number of ADCs. And O Group uses a similar method, but these are orders, and you issue actions to your platoon that will cost you a number of orders. So the harder orders or the more involved orders will cost you more, whereas the straightforward actions such as move and fire, whatever, are just one. It's basic. So a player has to decide what he wants to do and where he wants his command effort to go each turn. And the decisions are not only just down at platoon level, fighting with your platoons, but it also involves about bringing in your battalion mortars, artillery, when you release your reserves, when you consolidate after you've taken certain objectives, etc. So there's, the orders follow the battle as they go through. So that as the battle develops, more orders become apparent and come to the fore, which you think, oh, I'll start to use these now.
That sounds great. So how have the play tests been going? And Rich and Nick, have you been play testing with Dave?
We have. Yeah, we've done some.
We've done quite a bit, haven't we?
Yeah, it makes you think about actions and and phases, because you seldom have the opportunity to commit all things in one go.
I think that's one of the ultimate unique things about it. It's the concept that you can develop phase lines into your plan. So you can be going forward, taking your initial objectives, consolidating on that position, and then releasing a second wave to go on to the next phase line. And I think that's something which is very much a USP. It's something you read about all the time in historical actions, but something I've never seen actually in a game. So I think that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and it sort of fits in that level beneath Kriegspiel, but it's got that high level element to it. So if you've gone from, if you just think of chain of command at one end and you think Kriegspiel at the other, well, this lifts it up from chain of command closer to the Kriegspiel side of things.
The other thing I think is really important and really positive is the fact that you could have a large table with all your club mates, with everybody commanding their own battalion.
Yes,
so you can actually drive this up very easy to certainly brigade, if not division.
On the big table, 16 feet table.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, because one of the things we're very conscious about that was the fact that although the basic game is probably one-on-one, we've covered the ability to have battle groups, so you can have multiple battalions, and one player holds the position of the battle group commander, who could hold things like reserves of tanks, controls the artillery, etc., and basically gives extra orders to his battalions.
Create your command. Chain of command, to use a term that we've heard.
That's a very good term.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've got a scalable game. We've got a game which is club possible or friend possible. We've got a game that's pretty easy to pick up with a couple of people just in the evening.
To give an example, I played a game last week at the club with a chap who'd only ever played Warhammer and Warhammer 40k. And he hadn't played World War II, etc. But he picked up the mechanisms in it very quickly.
That's good.
Because the command is involved, but the mechanisms are not. And so he picked up the game quite quickly, and it's the time in the game is the players thinking, how long they're thinking about what am I going to do.
Especially in a modern game or World War II game, which can be quite technical.
But also think about it practically for people who might be interested in picking up a set. In terms of toys, if you're already playing A-Beam Shotgun, you've got the toys you need to play Oak because it takes things up a level. Instead of a section being represented by 3 bases, you've got a platoon being represented by 3 bases. So things go up, so it becomes manageable using your existing IBSM forces. Or if you're playing Flames of War or Rapid Fire, you've already got the toys you need to play this.
Yeah, and I was very conscious about that effect. I didn't want people to have to go to a great deal of effort to enter into the rules. It's basically, let's organise a rule set that allows people to use their existing armies and their existing basing to play the game.
And in a lot of ways, that sort of scale is perfect because IABSM is not covering that scale. Chain of Command isn't really covering that scale. But there's a lot written about those sort of engagements. I mean, there's not just the sort of specialist histories, but the unit histories would cover those sort of engagements.
Yeah, there's I mean, Richard's obviously the man here, but there's numerous accounts of actions where it covers a battalion attack, and generally a battalion attack would only be 1 or 2 companies up. And your third company, which O Group tries to replicate, is generally your reserve company. It doesn't force you to deploy like that, but it encourages you to follow the historical model. So you'll have 2 companies up and 1 back in reserve.
So, for instance, if you're using any of the actions that are described in any of the Battleground Europe books, which a lot of us use for Battleground Warcraft, you'll be able to replicate that with Ogre, because they're generally talking about battalion-size actions. Or if you pick up a war diary from Naval and Military Press or somewhere, they'll talk about battalion-scale actions, and you can just plug them straight in.
So one of the nice things we've got then is we've got a set of rules, which is a good entry point. We've got people with figures available with other games. We've got an entry point with the books. And perhaps the best thing of all, Dave, is that you're going to be at Salute in April.
Yes.
And you're going to be running a game of this at Salute.
Yes. A good colleague of mine, I'll give him a shout out, Martin Stanbridge, he's basically creating a section of Stalingrad for us. For
you don't want to go to Stalingrad.
Yeah, you do. I think it'll be fantastic. It's all in 15. Everything is being bespokely made. So imagine the setup is basically a slice of the River Volga with the transports coming over and the action involved. Right. Then there's the slope going up the bank, which will be basically a diorama of effect. And then we hit Pavlov's house and its environs, which is where the battle will actually be. And it's a participation game, so we're welcoming. Yes, we'll welcome anyone to come along. They can, control a German battalion or the defending Russian battalion for a few turns and just to get a gist of the rules.
Brilliant. Well, we'll look forward to seeing that there, Dave. I think more important things now. I think it's time to go and have a few drinks.
Right.
And on that note,
just to be sociable.
I'm already on my 4th.
Very good. Always good to hear from Dave in his normal haunt in trendy Covent Garden. So good to hear about our group, and I think we're all looking forward to seeing that coming up in the future. So
just after the interview, he went back outside and stood on his soapbox and did his robotic dancing for the crowd. Is that what happened?
I think that's just a normal thing with Dave, isn't it?
It's the
really?
medium of dance.
Yeah.
It's a big part of his life.
That's why we met him in Covent Garden.
I wonder why he was sprayed silver.
I didn't like to ask. I just thought it was a new look. He was certainly working for him.
Hello, Dave.
But moving on from silver Euro dance trooping Dave Brown onto another European trip which you've been on to, the sort of place that Dave would possibly think of as his second home, and that is the Netherlands.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been to PolderCon, which is held in early February in Utrecht. I was very wise. I went on a long weekend to Amsterdam and journeyed off to Utrecht for the Sunday for the show. Which was a great way to actually combine a family weekend with a bit of wargaming on the side, because I took my wife and my youngest daughter. We had a great weekend in Amsterdam, and then on the Sunday they took some push bikes around Amsterdam, and obviously for insurance purposes I couldn't go on a push bike. So going to PolderCon was a really good option. Now, PolderCon is... it's a really interesting show. It's not a trade show. There were 1 or 2 traders there, but predominantly it's a conference venue filled with war games tables. Some fantastic tables there. If you follow me on Twitter, you would have seen some of the photos from that show. And I was there running a game of Chain of Command with Jasper from War Games, Soldiers and Strategy. And together we were running a game set on Newspeak Perimeter. So it gives me a chance to talk about Arnhem as well. People are saying, where's the Arnhem supplement?
I was going to ask as well.
Yeah, okay. Well, the Arnhem supplement is finalising some of the maps to go with some of the tables now, and just clicking the whole thing into place to make sure that it all makes sense from top to tail. So we're getting closer every minute. We're not quite on the same timeline as 30 Core, so we're being fashionably late. With the supplement or campaign supplement. Anyway, one of the games in there is a game set on the western edge of the Oosterbeek perimeter, which is the border regiment. When the perimeter shrinks back on about the 20th, 21st of September, and the Unterführerschule Arnhem are attacking to the western perimeter. And there's a scenario there where the border regiment are holding Van Busselenweg, which is the road that goes up the western edge of the perimeter, with a couple of reduced platoons, and the Germans attack with Flampanzer. So they've got the Char, the old French tanks that have been put into German service
Some of them, some
are equipped with Flampanzer, so with flame weapons. And we thought that'd make a really interesting game, and it did make an interesting game. The idea of Poldercon is that you're exposing people to tasters, so it works. You sign up to play a game. You're going to go, you book your place at Poldercon, and then you book what games you're going to play. And they're in the morning. I think there's sort of 2 90-minute games in the afternoon. There's another 2 90-minute games. So it guarantees that as somebody's running a game, you will run 4 games a day. And it guarantees that as a punter, you get to play in 4 games of your choice. So each game has to last 90 minutes. Now, condensing a game of Chain of Command in 90 minutes is actually quite difficult because of the patrol phase as well. So, but each game we're able to fight to a conclusion, or to at least to the point where we had an feeling of how things were going to go. So nice to unravel that. Nice to play it with some people that had never played Chain of Command before, completely new to it, and with some guys that had previously had some exposure to it and have played it before as well. So mixture of experience and new guys. And yeah, we had a really good fun day.
It's quite interesting that you describing that, Nick, because it does sound less like a convention or a war game show, as we call it in the UK, and it sounds much more like a Lard day. You know, the situation that you come to a table, you've booked your place at the table, you're enthusiastic about that particular game, and then you play it, and then you move on and do something else. Yeah,
it did have that feel about it, actually.
Although Lard Day is typically 1 game in the morning and 1 game in the afternoon, so this is like Lard game on steroids, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is a bit manic. When I realised what time I was going to have to leave my Amsterdam apartment to get to Utrecht in time to get the game set up to start at 9 o'clock, which is
early by
our standards.
There's a sort of oblique reference to the fact you actually went to bed. Rather than just sort of going out from a late night cafe in Amsterdam.
He must be the only Brit to take his missus to Amsterdam.
Well, walking around the red light district with your 17-year-old daughter is an interesting experience.
Did she earn much?
Especially when your wife is looking at you through the window. Actually, the most interesting aspect of that was because I had to take a very early morning train from Amsterdam to Utrecht, was travelling to Utrecht with the people that are going home from Amsterdam at 6:30 in the morning, half of whom are still tripping.
Yes.
Brilliant. It was, conversations I overheard on the train were most amusing, but that's for another time. But yeah, it really did have that Lard Day feel about it. It was friendly. Lots of people coming to say hello. Lard games are very well represented, but there were also, lots of other games being played of various of various ilks and from various different stables. So everybody seemed to enjoy themselves.
There's some lovely games
provided.
Photographed. It's really
it's very relaxed, isn't it? With lunch being provided, and what I like there is that everybody sits down and eats in the dining room at the same time, so you have lots of time for chatting to people and discussing.
I like that.
Well, any old cobblers, really.
I was very keen to go after you went last year to experience it and see it for myself. And having done it, I would want to go again. I mean, whether I can go every year, I don't know, but I would like to do that again for sure. And I'd recommend it to people, especially if you can combine it with some kind of, if you're from the UK, going as I did with a weekend away, it really combines it really nicely.
Yeah, and Amsterdam and Utrecht and Naarden and all around there are really good places to go. So that sounds
I didn't see much of Utrecht because I arrived when it was dark and I went back.
I stayed in Utrecht last year. It's a lovely city. Really liked it. Really, there was a hell of a lot of roadworks going on last year, which was a bit of a pain in the arse, to be honest with you, because taxis are re-diverted.
Yeah.
But it is a really nice place. And the great thing is you walk about there and people know you're English and they speak to you in English and they're tremendously welcoming. I really do love Holland. I'm really impressed with it. It's the type of place you think, I could get a little flat there and go and visit regularly because there's so much history there. There's so much to see, and then when you get there, the places themselves are just beautiful and historic.
Well, I also took a visit. I've not been to the Anne Frank house, for instance, in Amsterdam, so I went to the Anne Frank house, which was really interesting. And then the way that's presented and the way the story is told, definitely worth a visit.
Yeah, and just going around Amsterdam is a great experience. One of my favourite cities. But moving on from Holland and
you
the
used to work
Netherlands.
there, didn't you?
I saw you. Sadly,
you were second on stage.
Well, by the time Sid came on stage, I had to get my daughter safely home and tucked in, so we didn't get to see Sid's show.
I do
which is
wonderful.
a shame because I would have liked you a signed ping pong ball.
Well, I was going to say I do wonderful things with ping pong balls, but we move on from that point and move on to the British Army. Because I know, Richard, you before we go to the workshop, you want to say a couple of words about what you've been doing with our friends of the British Army.
Oh, British Army are actually starting to pick up on wargaming as a tool, and I've had the opportunity to get involved with some of that, and hopefully it's looking like I'm getting involved in more of it. In fact, I've got something lined up in a couple of weeks' time, which is going to see me off to a unnamed location doing some undiscussable things. So yeah, but what is good is to see
that a bit like SAS Who Dares Wins. Are they going to be dangling you off a rope bridge in the Scottish Islands?
No.
You and Ant Middleton going head to head.
No, it's a lot more about pushing counters around a map, if I'm honest. But yeah, but it's good to see that wargaming is being recognised as being a tool that is worthwhile in something in the professional military.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing it on even on social media as well. You're seeing guys are tweeting photos of playing. I think a yeomanry regiment somewhere are playing water tanker. Now, I'm a little bit concerned to think that they're using that as a training. Yeah, but it's just about getting guys together and getting them to think about whatever's going on the battlefield, and as an opener to a conversation that maybe expands their thinking and gets them talking about whatever it is they want to talk about in the way that they want to talk about it.
It's from what I've read about the military side of wargaming as regards the sort of professional military doing wargaming. It always seems to be subsumed in an extremely technological discussion about organisation and responses, whereas hobby wargaming always seems at its heart to be about fun. Obviously there's a big recreation element of history, there's a competitive element which sometimes comes into hobby wargaming, but hobby wargaming is focused on fun, whereas military wargaming within the military profession I'd imagine is more focused on organisational responses. How did you find that was being bridged?
To a degree. What's interesting is when we first got involved with military wargaming, and I'm going back 5-6 years ago, we were at a conference, and it was very interesting that the military weren't really represented. It was a lot more civil servants looking for computer simulations that cost trillions and billions of pounds and create all sorts of improbable outcomes for people to deal with. And you think, well, you're over-engineering it, mate. Yeah. You are not doing what you should be doing. If you want to get young army officers or army officers, of any rank, thinking about issues that they're going to encounter on the battlefield, you're actually much better with an analogue simulation or war game than you are with a huge computer game, because what you want them to do is to react to a situation. It doesn't matter what has caused those situations, but they are presented with a situation, and they then have to respond and react to that in a manner which is pertinent and reflective of the circumstances they'll be on the battlefield. And the type of wargames that happen in the recreational market are perfectly good enough for that. And it doesn't really matter whether you are simulating combat in 2020 or whether you're simulating combat in 1944. Because issues are still very, very similar in terms of making decisions in a combat situation. So just getting people playing war games and making them think about decisions that they may have to make for real is surely a head start on nothing, which is what's existed before.
Yeah, and it certainly sits alongside other more physical, exercise-based training methods.
It's all part of a smorgasbord of what is potentially available.
Yeah, exactly right.
Certainly in the Danish army, one would imagine.
One would imagine.
Okay,
I think you might be taking the term smorgasbord too literally there, Sydney.
Well, let's move on from that. And I think our next port of call, to stretch that ferry analogy a little bit, would be to the workshop.
To the workshop and beyond.
I don't like it, Sergeant.
Me neither, sir.
Good Lord, it's really looking pretty bad. Yes, sir. It happens every time, sir. It's too predictable, sir. How far do you think we've advanced, Sergeant? 6 inches, sir. It's always 6 inches. We advance 6 inches, then Jerry gets a go. The lads are calling it high go, you go, sir. High go, you go? Good grief. And they don't like it, sir. Oh, not like it. Seems pretty straightforward to me, rather like cricket. We have an innings, then the other chap does. Well, that's all very well, sir, cricket, sir, but begging your pardon, it ain't like that, sir, in war. I don't think Mr. Hitler plays like that. What, Hitler? No, gosh, he'd like to go all the time. Oh, Lord, sir, lummy. Well, sir, anyway, sir, it's like this, sir. If it carries on like this, high go, you go, me and the lads won't be coming to your Thursday evening games club, and that's the way it is, sir.
Looking for more of a challenge with your World War II games? Are you tired of the predictability of I go, you go systems? Iron Bean Shopman provides real command challenges on an unpredictable battlefield. TooFatLardies, playing the period and not the rules since 2002. Pip pip.
So we're here in the workshop, and I have to say, every time we come in here, Richard, it's just there is less and less of the desk which is actually visible. I mean, now it's kind of buried within Vallejo pots. There's varnish, cups of water, figures everywhere. Goodness knows what's happening here.
I'm painting my
And I
goals.
found your glasses, look.
No, they're not my glasses.
There's 2 pairs here.
Yeah, there's about 7 pairs of glasses on that table. They all do different things.
Well, we should put them near the table next time we do.
The Richard Clark glasses spectacles collection.
Next time we do some Lard TV, which will hopefully be very, very soon.
Yeah, hopefully. We're talking of Lard TV, actually, which I should have mentioned in what you've been up to. What haven't we been up to is Lard TV, and the reason is I've been too bloody busy. But we have filmed the next Jean Bleu Gap, but I haven't got round to editing it, which I hope to do very soon. But Infamy has been a real full-time job. Anyway, workshop. Here we are in the workshop.
So we definitely have all sorts of ancient figures. There's a big tray of chariots.
Yeah.
There's quite a few cavalry.
Swing low. That's it. Those chariots are being painted in time for the home nations.
There's some lovely Numidian cavalry.
Is there one French nation? Is there representative?
No, they're all British. They're all English.
There's some great Numidians over there. Some Gauls.
They are. Yeah. That's right. So, my hairy Gauls are on display.
So talk us through what you've been doing.
Painting hairy Gauls, British chariots. I'm on my sort of final splurge of building armies for Infamy, because the Gauls and the Britons will kind of serve for both sides, for both types, really. So I'm painting a lot of sort of Celtic warriors, some of whom are going to be British, some of whom are going to be Gallic. And that's been good fun. I'm really enjoying doing that. But I must admit, I'll be glad to finish the bloody things.
So which figures have you been using? Which have you been enjoying? Or which have you found?
You drop them, I'll cut your legs off. I've not used them yet. I don't want them all on the floor. Right. Well, let's have a look. There's a real mix here. Actually, this is going to really be good on audio. These chariots here are supplied by Crusader Miniatures, but they're actually wood. These two.
They're MDF.
MDF, yeah, that's right. I think they're foreground.
Yeah.
And the figures, what I've done is I've used a mixture of Warlord figures and, Foundry figures and Crusader miniatures. So this guy's driving the chariot is Foundry. These guys are Crusader.
Yeah.
And I've mixed and matched, really. What I've done is these are Crusader Gallic nobles, and I've cut the swords out of their hands, and I've given them javelins. Yeah. Because that's what they would be using while they're mounted in the thing.
Do you replace all your spears with wire spears now?
Well, actually, when you buy Foundry figures and when you buy Crusader miniatures, you have to buy the spears separately. So they're steel spears.
Yeah.
But if I were doing plastic armies, one of the things I found, and this may well be because I transport my armies all over the country, all over the place, putting games on at shows. Every time I run a game with plastic figures, a couple of the spears break. Yeah. And what I do is, Had I thought about it at the outset, I would have replaced them all. But to be honest with you, replacing all the spears in a whole army is a bit of a tedious thing. So, in a way, it's probably better, because what I'm doing is, as they break, I replace them with metal spears. Because one of the things about ancient armies is, or certainly should be, is a lot of spears. Too many figures are modelled with swords, because a sword would be like a high value item. You wouldn't have one unless it's your Range Rover.
Yeah,
It's not your forward focus. Your forward focus is the spear.
So there's some lovely things about these chariots here.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think a lot of people worry about from time to time is my figure manufacturers don't quite do the figures in quite the right sizes. Some are chubby, some are smaller. But actually, when you've got a unit, once you purposefully mix things up,
I don't care.
Over time, from a distance, it all comes out in the wash. Really,
those Gallic stewards over there.
You've only got to go to any war game show to see how different shapes and sizes people are.
Just look at the three of us.
Exactly.
You two are freaks.
Well, quite. Yeah. Yeah.
Are these Gallic stewards?
No, mate, they're not. They're not. A Gallic steward is on the little round base. But what you'll see...
there's a three.
There he is. Now, this is Gallic stewards. The Gauls, the Gallic cavalry are largely nobles, but they brought their stewards along with them. And the stewards would stand back with fresh horse, fresh supply of javelins, maybe a fresh sword, and then the Lord would have a bit of a hack, ride back, pick up the new gear, go in and fight again.
So very similar to a page with a medieval knight, really.
Yeah, very
so these guys, different
the
size.
origins of it, I doubt.
So look, this guy here is Foundry. He's shorter than those two fellas there, who are Crusader. So what? He's a short geezer.
He looks like a teenager. He's a sort of thing, he could be a 14-year-old boy.
Exactly. And that's why I've set him back, so you can see the main steward is at the front, and just set back is the little lad who's holding the spears.
It's
perfectly all right.
effective. They're nice pieces as well. Nice little vignettes. What Infamy is providing, I think, is the opportunity, if you like creating little vignettes. There's loads of opportunity within.
Well, look at the ambush points and the deployment points in the rules. I've got some lovely Germanic ones. I'm just about to start on the British ones, which are really good. So I've really enjoyed doing them. I must admit, it's been a lot of painting, because, as I've mentioned, I've painted about 7 different armies. I mean, I've recently just finished my Caesarian armies, so I've got numerous Roman armies. Romans to fight Romans, Romans in the Imperial period, Romans in the Caesarian period, and then we've got, obviously, the Germans, the Britons. I've got a separate Belgae army, because I wanted them to look half German, half Celtic, because you've got that big crossover between the two. Those guys are up, funnily enough, in Holland. I've done a lot, and I will be pleased to get the Britons finished, because we've been playing. We started off doing a lot of play testing with the Germans. We obviously then moved on looking at the Romans against Romans, and Romans against servile wars, sort of slaves, gladiators. And we've been doing a lot of games at the club with Romans against Britons, and I'm really enjoying them. What I've tried to do is to make the Britons very, very different from the Germans, and again, the Germans different from the Gauls, and even the Belgae different to the Gauls and Aquitani. So you've got people fighting in ways that you read about in the historic accounts, but ways that are quite different levels of aggression with different arms and things like that. The Gauls are actually far more ordered and structured than the Britons or the Germans, but the Germans, again, are different to the Britons. So I think that's been a really enjoyable part for me with doing the research, is to then create armies based on what I've read in Caesar or Tacitus or Josephus. And that research has, I feel, led plausibility to the rules that we produce. So, but yeah, anyway, we're not talking about the rules, we're talking about the workbench. They've been good. War bases, Limes Tower, love it. 2 bits. War bases, I approached Martin. Excuse me, lads, let me go over here.
Yeah.
I approached Martin and said, Martin, one of the scenarios is going to have a Limes Tower, the Roman fortifications on the frontier.
It's very nice.
And he produced these.
So it's got the stone base to it.
It's got a stone base.
Elevated platform, a bit like air traffic control tower,
sort of.
if you wanted to describe it.
And the roof falls off, you gimlet. Right, and there's a door halfway up the side which you need a ladder to access. And it would be, and that comes on as well.
They run inside and pull the ladder up.
8 people. That's right, they run inside and pull the ladder up.
Yeah.
And what I did with that
bit like what happens when I go to my in-laws.
Yeah. What I did with that is the stone base is actually engraved, as war bases obviously do with their sort of laser etching thing, whatever. But I just cut out bits of card from a cornflake packet and randomly stuck them on. A bit like the old Ian Weekly, for people who remember that far back, the way he used to add a bit of stone just to give a bit of texture.
That's right, yeah.
I'm really quite pleased with it. I think, I'm really pleased with the model as it is. I used some of their tiles on the roof. That is their, what do they call them? Shingles tiles. And I think the end result is really nice.
Very attractive.
Really nice.
Very, very nice indeed.
Well, on the topic of wall bases, and also I noticed it in this building here, this tower.
Yeah.
So wall bases have slightly changed the way they're doing doors these days. So the doors come with something like Lego hinges, so you can actually have doors that can open and close or close.
I like that one on there.
Yeah, it fits quite. I mean,
there's a technique to doing it, and it's called patience.
Yeah.
What you do is you put the bottom one in and glue it and let that go off, and then you attach you hold the top one on the door, and you put the glue on and you hook the bottom of the door over the one that's already dried and slot that in, and then it works perfectly.
Yeah, and of course it works much better if you use super glue, because you can do it all much quicker than with that white PVA glue. Just put that out there.
I just think that's complete crap. The other building that I've really enjoyed making was this one from Sarissa, which is from their Gangs of Rome range, and it's just a little Roman thing where a dead person lives in. That's it, a mausoleum.
Mausoleum.
Dead bloke's house. It's a mausoleum. And that is a lovely model. Now, all I've done, these walls were plain, but I've just painted those lines on to give it a look of blocks. Yeah. And I replaced the roof with some Wills plasticard,
which is very good. We use those for the villa
tiling. And I think that
nice
change of roof really sets it off, because the roof, very light when we did the Arnhem buildings, was a thin card, and you could see the lugs coming through, a la Waterloo farmhouse that I refer to constantly. I think I must have been bitten by a Waterloo farmhouse when I was a baby, because it has stressed me out ever since. But so I really, really like that model. I think it's a lovely model, and you put that on the table and it just... It sets the tone.
It's a small footprint as well.
It's a
quite
tiny
a small
footprint,
model.
but it's so evocative.
Well, it's about, what was it, 3 inches? 3 inches each side?
3 inches square with a bit of a few steps up the
front.
front.
And also, I know you're using it for ancients, but you could take that and put it in the Peninsular Wall. It'd be great to have.
It could be Fernando's outside Kazi or whatever.
Well, if Fernando would be gauche.
Well, not they say, bit flashy.
A bit flashy. Well, I've got some things I want to talk about wall bases as well.
Well, I just wanted to mention Empires of War, who are a company who sell on the eBay, and I bought a Roman farm from them, MDF buildings, but theirs come with Pantile roof sheeting, which actually I was very impressed with, and I think they're a small company, as I say, mainly selling on eBay, but producing some lovely buildings. So just a shout out to them. Well done, Empires at War, producing what is a Roman farm. You get a lot of villas, and some of the villas are very nice, but sometimes you don't want something as big and sprawling as a villa, you just want a farm. And that farm is super delicious.
Yeah, one of the things that you get the impression, looking at some of the textbooks on Roman Britain, for example, in museums, everyone had a villa. Well, very far from that. There's a lot of small holdings
in fact, many of those Roman villas were taken over British farms, which they then built on and extended whilst retaining the original building for the initial period at least. So I actually did a lot of looking into the architecture specifically of Roman Britain, because that's the most easily accessible for us. And it's interesting to see how those evolved from a Celtic British farm into a Roman villa. Anyway, that's me. Nicholas, you wanted to say something about
I want to talk about war bases, because can we overlay a trumpet fanfare here?
It's not very
Because war bases have released their Dutch buildings in 28mm for World War II.
Which we took a load of photographs for them when we were over there, didn't we?
A shed load of photographs and said, we want our buildings to look more like this.
More Dutch, rather, because everything's Normandy.
Everything's Normandy, So when we create Holland on the War Games table, most of it looks like Carentan. So we now have the opportunity to use some more Dutch style buildings in our game. So they brought out I think there's a farm, there's a residential house. They've got the houses from Lombok where Urquhart hid in the loft, for instance. They've done those with 2 different varieties, so you can create a street with those Dutch style houses. Yeah. There's a Dutch church that is obviously a very different style to the ones that you see.
Is it brick?
In Normandy, yes, it is a brick church.
Which is what we saw a lot when we were over there.
Yeah, and the buildings they've got, what we noticed in Holland is a lot of the period buildings had that mansard roof to them, so they've got the sort of, I don't know what you call that, the different shape it goes, like a, how would you describe it? It's got a V and then it's got an angle bit on the side of it.
Sort of got a normal roof, and then you get 2 bits down the side.
Yeah, which is still the roof.
Yeah, so the roof is kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 sided.
Yeah, that's right.
So to speak, but not a
square.
square.
So in the MDF roof you get is a 4. You get, instead of 2 roof sheets, you've got 4 roof sheets.
Yeah, that's right.
So and looking at the kits, I mean, maybe that some work is required to smooth the roof off. With always but if you're going to customise and tailor these things. But the great thing about them is that you can sort of lay them end to end or have them sideways or whatever. Because what we notice in Holland particularly is that you often get the farmhouse and the barn as right next to each other. So always
joined onto each other, that's right.
As one long building. And the buildings that wall bases have done will enable you to create that.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really I'm so excited to be able to...
So town and country are covered.
Town and country are covered. And I hope that they can do more, and I hope it inspires other people to do some more as well, because it'd be nice to get our Dutch battlefields looking like Holland rather than looking like we're trying to recreate it in Devon.
Yeah,
something like that.
Klompen te Koop?
Klompen te Koop signs are available.
I think a big thing is always trying to place a table in a particular setting, and that's why the Roman mausoleum really works. And you remember that the game that we had at Deep Fried Lard last year with a small oratory in basically 6th century Scotland. Which,
that was incredible.
Which
Just
really,
that
really nice.
Small chapel on the table set the tone for that. That was it. That was almost all the buildings,
Just about,
the only
just
building,
about.
and it really set the tone.
Yeah.
You could have been near Lindisfarne or somewhere like that, couldn't you? It was really.
You almost don't need much, but if you've got something which is specific to that location and that time, I think that does a lot of the lifting.
Yeah, I really cannot wait to get them. I've made one of the buildings so far, and I've got about 8. But I'm looking forward to getting them all done and put them on the table.
Is that the one still stuck to your left hand? You use super glue?
I've used super glue. I have used super glue.
I think the other thing about it is that
of course
the classic sort of Dutch buildings that you would see in Amsterdam on the Herengracht or the Prinsengracht are completely different to the buildings that you'd see in Arnhem.
Yeah, that's right. We're not looking at those sort of tall facades.
No.
We're looking at much more sort of, but they look completely different to anything that you see across other parts of Europe.
Yeah, they do.
Which is why it's important that we get them right on the table. So well done to Martin.
I think this is what we've always said before, is about making your table plausible, making your table tell a story, so that allows people to immerse themselves into the feel of the game.
I'm talking about making your table look fantastic, not just terrain, is it? Because there's also lots of little things which go by the side of the actual playing board, including, Nick, I can see you're holding 2 very fine, basically dashboards, which are, I think, chain of command trackers. Talk to us about that.
This is here. Have a look at those. Right.
Does it go all the way up to 11?
These are. If I tell you that they've been created in Smurf blue,
oh no!
It might
we know who it could be.
Where they may have come from.
No more marital pink, marital egg pink. This is Smurf blue.
This is like a Smurf blue.
So where are they all coming from?
Yeah, well, they are coming from. Let's start from the beginning. What I'm holding is a force morale tracker for chain of command.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit like
looks edible.
I was going to say it feels like a bar of chocolate. It's a bit like holding a bar of chocolate. If Cadbury's made force morale trackers, this is what they would look like. So these are from our friend and guy who helped us out with 3D printing exercise that we did before Christmas with the famous Humber.
Is it Uncle Paul?
It's Paul Edwards. And Paul has a fantastic printing device, which means that he's creating these items in resin. And as you will notice from looking at them, there are no lines. There are no lines on this. It's almost like it's been press stamped out of plasticine. There are no lines.
How does that happen?
Because he's got a very high quality printer and he's using a good quality resin, I believe. Now, the thing about this is, not only is Paul producing force morale trackers for Chain of Command, he's also producing some tokens that go with Lardy games like Overwatch markers, etc. If you want some of those, he's producing items of terrain, so some fencing, for instance, that's quite specialist that he's created. Some lovely picket fencing.
Those fences look superb. Did you see the Twitter tutorial?
Yes.
For the
eccentric man.
About the eccentric man up in St Evernage.
Ken,
yeah. What a fabulous job. I really, it was a really super tutorial because it was simple, but the result was outstanding.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with that. In fact, I tweeted to say, thanks very much, this has been good. Or words to that effect.
Yeah. And the good thing, Paul is creating, the base model there is a 3D print of Paul's. And I'm really chuffed that Paul, and excited for him, that Paul has decided to set up a business that's selling these products into the war games market. So, and he's decided to call, this is very clever, he's decided to call his business Sabotaged, but instead of ED on the end, it's a 3D.
Why is that clever?
Get it? Well, dear listener, let's not abuse.
It's Sabot bases that he's thinking of, isn't he? I guess.
Well,
you think?
Well, maybe.
Because he does a lot of those Sabot bases, doesn't he?
Yes. And
so that is clever. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and
now.
he's got the 3 on the
3D,
end. So if you're looking for it on Twitter, it's like Sabotaged, but instead of the E, you have a 3. And he's created a web store, and he's now you can buy these items for yourself. The great thing about the Chain of Command Force Morale tracker that I've got here is that, as you'll see, Richard, is that the one that I've got is embossed with a German cross.
Yeah. And
yours is embossed with the Pegasus. Of the Airborne Division.
Right.
And therefore, the ability to get these customised for any force in your command becomes suddenly more possible.
And there are 12 indented holes from 0 up to 11. Where
look how big they are,
and they're the size of a penny. So you could buy, let's say, for example, the Zhukov figure in 28mm by Black Tree Design. So if you're playing the Soviets, you've got Zhukov, or if you're playing the Germans, you've got von Rundstedt, or Hitler. If you particularly feel like having Hitler,
in his various states of depression.
At what point does the table explode?
And in the middle of it is two little bits where you can put your Chain of Command dice as you build those up.
That's a nice size.
Really lovely.
How big is that? 5 inches by 3 inches.
Postcard size. Slightly smaller than the post. Slightly smaller than the post.
Pretty similar to a Force Morale tracker.
And Paul has done. Paul has printed some vehicles, and I've seen some of the vehicles that he's printed, and they have no lines. Okay, he's printed in this really high quality resin, and at the moment we're using a Smurf blue, but he tells me there's another exciting colour on the way. There's no lines. It's really
and those
good
paint,
quality stuff, top quality.
Paint any colour you want them to.
Yeah, they paint up fine. Yeah, no problem at all.
I'm not sure I want to paint them. They're pretty pretty as they are.
I think you could use them as they are.
I like them.
But you probably would paint them, I think.
Well, actually, with this Pegasus on it, I could paint it in sort of burgundy and then do the
spray.
Pegasus. Yeah. Spray would be easier, wouldn't it? Yeah. But no, they are very nice.
So he's producing bases. If you want some Sabo bases, he's producing.
I do need some actually. I intend to go on his website and make a purchase, and I keep intending to do it, but I need something to prod me over the line.
What he's done with it is making them already textured. So prints them textured, so you don't have to necessarily.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. I thought.
So he's got some really interesting ideas, and talking to him about what he might do and what else he might create. To go with that, I love the idea that maybe getting some stowage. You might be able to print some stowage off. I'm a huge stowage fan, so let's more power to Paul. If you can get on Paul's website, Sabotaged, look him up. And
there's a Twitter account as well, which I've just
Twitter account. Yeah, put some orders his way because this kind of stuff needs support.
One of the things that I have also received. Recently that I want to mention, which is on the bench, you can see it there, are 12mm armoured fighting vehicles from Victrix, who are releasing their whole new range absolute. Let me pass them to you.
They're
Sidney.
quite crisp, aren't they?
They're deep and crisp and even, mate.
Yeah.
They are
They're crisp.
absolutely lovely. I can't find them.
I
gave them to you earlier.
Yeah, I've
but
got
I think
them.
you probably hurled them over.
No,
Oh, there they
they're
are. I
under-
put the
they're under
Victrix Tower on top of them.
Not the Victrix Tower.
Warbase's Tower on top of them.
Let's have a
Yeah,
look.
the Victrix. I think. Here we are.
So we've
look.
got. You reckon that these are just like they're straight out of a model? So if you open an Airfix packet or I guess Warlord Games packet, on the sprues we've got a Sherman tank. So a Sherman tank, for instance, consists of
nice.
2 tracks,
Oh,
2 track sides, underside, a top side, a turret. And a couple of bits to stick on it, including turret hatches, either open or closed with a commander.
Nice option that, so you can personalise, do a bit of personalisation here. This sprue here has got 2 Panzer IVs on it. So Panzer IV is made up of a bottom, a top, with a top deck, 2 sides, which these have got Schutzen on. You've got a rear engine decking section separately, and a sort of exhaust bit that sticks on the back. And again, choice of turret hatches, open and closed. So 1, 2, 3,
7,
4,
8 bits.
5, 6, 7 big bits, and then it's
And the
couple of options on the
Sherman
thing.
is sort of 5 bits to get the main tank.
So that's nice. So here we've got Panthers.
Nice.
Looking lovely. Stugs, looking lovely.
They remind me of the game Tank Commander from when I was a kid. The tanks are not much different in size, I don't think.
Well, I have decided I'm going to be doing some forces for O Group in this, and I think that's a lovely scale. It does mean I'm going to have to invest in a whole new range of more buildings, but hey.
But that's hopefully quite an easy entry point, isn't it? I mean, they're very... they're very...
well, I'm working on the basis that I cannot die while I still have unpainted stuff. So if I keep buying more stuff, I'll never die.
Okay, well, that's good.
So with
Not
all these,
convinced that'll work. But.
So with all these fantastic products, do we have a best bit on the bench?
Cool, blimey, there's a lot there, isn't it? Well, if I had to make my choice, I'd say it's the Warbase's Dutch buildings, because I've waited so long for somebody to do Dutch buildings that the fact that Martin has responded to us and made these buildings, which are absolutely the epitome of what the Dutch buildings we saw were. In fact, obviously they're based on the photographs we took, I think, means that Warbase's Dutch building range have to be the best bit on the bench.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, Paul's stuff is fantastically brilliant, and I really say.
Yeah, but Paul himself was the best bit on the bench recently.
Was he? Okay, you're right. That's right. That's true.
Can't be every week, Paul.
No, that's right. I'm starting a bit of a Paul Edwards fan club.
You are, aren't you? I think the two of you
Paul,
might be
very worried. Be very worried, mate.
Put a picture of him above my.
You sure it wasn't him and you in Amsterdam?
I might have seen him peering at me behind him.
All that mascara on that he does.
You can't see very much through the hole, really, can you? Couldn't really tell who it was. But I'm very confident it wasn't Paul. Well, really good. And Board Base is absolutely right. They're going to look fantastic. And with Arnhem coming out, no excuse not to pick
So big hoots to Martin up there north of the border in the Kingdom of Fife, and thank you very much for making buildings available that were not available before. And I think, I mean, I would definitely also recommend their tiles to go with them, because I think
roof tiles as well.
With a mansard roof, because of the unusual shape of it, finishing it off with those roof tiles will make it perfect. So,
well, always with MDF buildings, I think, because they are by nature quite flat.
Well, as we discussed with the Sarissa dead person's house that I've got,
Mausoleum.
I've changed the roof on that because roofs do need it, I think. Right, that's enough of that.
Okay,
it's cold here. Let's get out.
Yeah,
let's get out.
A worthy winner, and let's leave the workshop. And let's head back to the sofa of sincerity, I think.
Not the couch of contemplation.
Indeed so, where we have some important things to discuss. Come in, guys. Right, make yourself comfortable on the couch of contemplation.
A bit warmer in here.
Yeah. Now we're going to address our big issue. I think it's a really good one. Prompted by a number of different threads and events and things we've talked about. Richard, I know yesterday you were down at a remembrance service in Ramsgate for something called the Channel Dash. So can you tell us a little bit about that historical event? And also, I'd like to know a little bit more about why we're talking about the Channel Dash in the context of wargaming.
Okay. Channel Dash. Operation Cerberus, the Germans called it. The Germans, Kriegsmarine, had got a squadron of Prince Eugen and the Scharnhorst down in Brest in Brittany, which was being bombed the hell out of by the RAF. So they decided that they were going to get shot of it and move them up to Germany. Now there's two options really doing this. They could sail all the way around the United Kingdom, and that would mean really going past Scapa Flow and the North Sea, which wasn't particularly appealing to them. So they decided they were going to have a little audacious plan and run straight through the Channel. So it was a dash through the Channel by 2 German battleships and a cruiser. What was the cruiser, Nick? Can't remember. You got the Scharnhorst.
Scharnhorst nice down.
And Prince Eugen. Yeah,
so Prince Eugen, of course, famous for being the sidekick of the Bismarck. That went on the Bismarck cruise, and then headed for Brest after that, and stayed there until this. Yeah,
exactly. So they decided that they'd get out. So the British response, they had a plan called Operation Fuller, which was basically deciding how they were going to deal with this. And what the idea was to send out some fairy swordfish with torpedoes on, to try and knock a hole in the battleships, with lots of RAF Spitfires providing top cover. Well, what happened was that 6 fairy swordfish took off from Kent, but only 10 of the Spitfires turned up to provide top cover. And at the same time, the Luftwaffe was putting 250 fighters over the top of these 3 ships, which were zooming through the Channel. In fact, they just about left the Channel.
Well, there's more than 3 ships, aren't there? Because they've got there's other supporting vessels.
There are other supporting vessels as well. Yeah, absolutely.
As always, there's the also runs that don't get mentioned.
No, that's right. But the whole thing is that it's a completely one-sided affair.
Yeah.
And the 6 swordfishes that go into action. This is a biplane which has got a top speed of less than 200 miles an hour. I think the speed that we're looking at there is about 170 miles an hour. So it's really slow. So these brave pilots...
And slower if they're on a run.
And slower if they're trying to get a run in, because they descended to 50 feet to try and go to the optimum level for releasing their torpedoes. And all 6 released their torpedoes. The total damage to the 3 German ships was 0. And of the 3 men on each swordfish, and of those 18 men, only 5 survived. The rest were killed. One of the pilots taking part was Sub-Lieutenant Peter Bligh, who was my wife's uncle, who was killed and never came back. And we went down there with representatives of her family to hand over some of the memorabilia. His brother died last month. My wife's other uncle died last month, and he had a very large amount of information appertaining to what happened. So we decided we really wanted that information to go for posterity.
Also related to Captain Bligh.
Yeah, my wife's a direct descendant of Captain Bligh. I'm sick of the sight of bloody breadfruit. So, and I do mutiny quite often. But so the family connection is there. So what happened there is they went up, and the Germans shot them to bits, basically. The story is that the ME-109s, obviously trying to get behind the swordfishes and get on their tail, were unable to do that because the ME-109 was too fast. They were having to put down their landing gear to try and create drag to allow them to get on the tail. But even so, when you've got 250 planes against 16 planes, and also all the naval gunnery that's going to be going up, it was pretty disastrous. So that got me having a conversation online, really, about the idea of unwinnable war games. And is it not just unwinnable war games, but would you want to refight, for example, the Alamo? Because you know they're going to lose. Would you want to refight Leonidas at Thermopylae because you know he's going to lose? Would you want to refight Isandlwana because you know they're going to lose? Would you want to refight the string bags on the Channel Dash because you know they're going to lose?
But you don't.
Well, you do.
You know that. but just takes one lucky torpedo.
Oh well, yeah, but they're still going to die.
Yeah.
Well, it really comes down to the question, doesn't it? When you set up a war game, what's the objective of the war game? And there's obviously a question that you're recreating history, if it's a historical war game. So you're attempting to think, well, what are the winning conditions? And then there's also a competitive hobby experience. So what is the point of the hobby? Is it to be competitive and to win? Or is it to have a great experience and perhaps also on the spectrum, maybe learn something relating to the experience?
So is the question, what do we expect from a game? What are the criteria that define, well, I don't know, not define a war game? Because I think what I'm thinking about with this is, what makes a good war game is a bit like saying what makes a good lunch.
Yeah, lots of it.
We all lots of it. That's the only criteria. It doesn't matter what it is. We all go to a restaurant and we all need food.
Yeah.
But we all eat different things. So maybe as war games, we all need a war game, but what we have can be totally different.
And you're going to look for different things at different stages in a wargaming life. You're going to look for different things at the same time. You're going to want different games, like you want different meals. You're not going to want the same meal every time, but some meals you're going to enjoy frequently because they may be your favourites.
Yeah, but some things you just don't like eating.
Some things you don't like eating at all.
I'm
and you
getting
may
the impression that you're
things.
thinking too much about food here, not about wargaming.
But we're just drawing the analogy out, aren't we? There's some meals that I've tasted and you don't want to eat it again, and I guess there are some games that you might feel like that about. Whether
bloody breadfruit.
Yeah, breadfruit. Whether it's war games or scenarios, or there's certain things that appeal, aren't there? And they'll be different, as you say, Sid, from one person to the next. The games that we like to play.
One of the interesting things about games which you start and you might not be able to win is, what do you know about that game when you start? So I remember an example somebody gave me of the Force Z experience, I think with the Prince of Wales and the Repulse.
Yeah.
And they had recreated that, but not with British and Japanese forces, but with British and Italian forces.
Right.
And it had been a disguised scenario, and one of the sides didn't know that essentially they were almost certain to lose that engagement because the Repulse and the Prince of Wales didn't have any particular air cover. They were exposed, and there's a number of reasons why that was,
really.
Which is partly relating to the Americans in Manila and what they were supposed to be promising in those circumstances. But in that circumstance, the players didn't know the scenario they were facing. They didn't know that there really was no way that they could win. Now that's a different scenario from another game in which one side knows that it's hopeless and is perhaps looking for their enjoyment in that war game and getting something else out of it, which is potentially either doing better than historically the combatants would have achieved, or it might be that winning and losing isn't really a big part of that experience for the players, and the players are looking for something else, maybe an environment which is historically plausible. Maybe it's to test command and control and the chaos which ensues in any scenario when one force is losing.
Yeah.
So there's
it's interesting. I mean, I've never just reflecting on what you say when you walk back in the door after a war game. I've never walked back in the door after a war game and say, I crushed him completely, or I got completely hammered. I tend to say, we had a great game.
Yeah.
So is your experience what's your great idea for a war game? Is it a narrative experience, maybe, Nick?
So for me, there are definitely two. I think for me there are two sides to this. I really love the recreation of the decision-making conundrum that is faced by the guys on the ground. So there's certain instances that you put people in situations they're faced with the historical situation. They have to make decisions based on the resources that they had available to them at the time. And I like the idea that you can recreate that and learn in that same process. Sid, you talk about the Boer War games that we played and how you understood. We took those games as a series of an emergence of understanding about how recreating the learning curve that the British Army went through in the Boer War. So that for me is hugely important, and that learning aspect is a massive part of it. But the other side of it for me is the story. I don't play to win. I play for the story that unfolds. I look on every game and I look for the bits and pieces that would tie together. I use the word narrative, but for me it's just if I play back the timeline of what happened in that game, is it a plausible story? And if it is, win, lose, draw, peter out, annihilation, whatever, that's fine by me. They're all valid outcomes. And it's as valid to be on either side of that, and just to be able to create the story and just see how that situation may have unfolded.
But what's the key component of that validity? What makes that wargaming experience?
Historical plausibility.
Yeah. So at the heart of it is
yes,
you have those challenges relating to narrative. You have those challenges relating to command and control, because they exist in a context and environment of historical accuracy.
Yeah, if I've faced, as a gamer, the same frustrations as my historical counterpart, then that's, for me, a worthwhile game.
Okay, that's interesting, actually, because that throws up some interesting questions. I would just say, picking up on what you said, you don't play to win. I do play to win.
Well, I don't play to lose.
No. But I feel that wanting to win is something that motivates me to try hard in the game to win it.
Yeah.
I would say that at the end of a game, I'm not bothered whether I've won or lost.
I think that's what.
But I find that the motivation, the fact that it is a game and it is competitive. I'm not really switched on by this idea of games where I have to work with you in order that we both collectively come to an outcome that we want. I'm much more interested in crushing you into the dirt and humiliating you.
Yeah, well, that's visibly apparent. However, collaboration games are an interesting sideline on that.
I wasn't actually being facetious about crushing you into the dirt, but I am motivated by the idea. Shut up. I'm motivated by the idea that I can be playing a game and it presents me with a command challenge that is difficult.
Yes.
I don't want a game to be easy. So that's one of the reasons why we collectively moved away from the concept of an I go, you go game. Because I remember games that we used to play going back 30 years, 25 years, whatever, where I would say, I know what my plan's going to be. I'm going to advance on the right until I get to that river. Then I'm going to push up in the middle and pin with them. Then I'm going to bombard with my artillery. And then I'm going to unleash my cavalry. And then we're going to push up over the bridge and drive you off the table. And that type of game, because it was I go, you go, even where you had things like variable movement, the I go, you go, predictable nature of that turn meant that I could pretty much coordinate my force in a manner that felt implausible to me. And it also felt a bit too easy, so that when we reached contact at the point that I wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
And when my bombardment started, it happened at the point where I wanted it to happen. And therefore the real challenge was not a challenge, it was a dice rolling competition. Because if my plan is a sensible one, if I roll good dice, I'm going to win. And if you roll good dice, I'm going to lose. And that, for me, lost a bit of magic. Whilst you still enjoy the social aspect of a game like that, because, let's face it, one of the joys of wargaming is that we're doing it in the same room with our friends. We're not doing it on a computer terminal and playing against an AI system. It's the fact that I wanted the game to provide a lot more in terms of challenge. Now, one of the reasons that, some people say to me, Chain of Command, when my opponent gets 3, 4, 5 phases on the trot, which is, it does happen, but it doesn't happen very often. And they say, it's completely ruined my game. And I actually think when that happens to me, that completely makes my game. Because you can't fail to plan. You have to make plans. You have to know what you want to do. And when something like that happens, the wheels have gone off the plan completely. You have got very limited time. You've got to reevaluate what's happening. You've got to refocus. You've got to replan, and you've got to implement that quickly. I love that challenge.
I'll ask you a question on that. Can I just play devil's advocate for a moment?
Yes.
So, what you're really interested in those circumstances is having a situation which is partly driven by chaos, and mastering chaos, or being able to control things which are happening which are screwing up a plan.
So,
He's
okay, all right.
His mouth is flapping like a landed fish. Yeah.
He's pressed one of my buttons.
Just taking that thought forward for a moment.
Yeah.
And this is playing devil's advocate. What is the point of that when the ultimate result is the destruction of your force?
What's the point of what? The chaos?
No. What is the point? What are you learning through mastering chaos? Are you not simply delaying the inevitable?
No, it's not chaos. No. It isn't chaos. It's complex. It's not a chaotic situation where so chaotic is you never know what's going to happen next. But actually, you do know. You can say from where we are now, there are certain things that might happen next, but you can't predict which one's going to come next.
Well,
so it's not chaotic.
That's tautology, isn't
it?
Well, because to the individuals on the ground, no, that's not, Nick. I've got to say that's not correct. To the individuals on the ground,
no.
That situation is inherently chaotic.
Because they are not governed. What happens next is unpredictable.
No, they are not governed by the fact that they know that the existence on the tabletop exists in the construct of a set of rules. For the troops, for the belligerents on the table, it is inherently chaotic. For the wargamer, it's complex.
No, but it's about predictability of outcome. It's about if
something's
not
chaotic, predictable for the troops on the table in existence.
You cannot predict the outcome. But if it's complex, you can predict the outcome. But you don't necessarily know which one it is. There's a number of possible options, but you don't know which one it will be. So what happens in a war game and what happens in history and in warfare is that people do things to stack the odds in their favour. And whether that be in a war game choice of support options, or deciding the moment in which you unleash your heavy cavalry, or supporting units with another unit to make sure you get the bonus or whatever, you're doing things in a way that mean that what happens next for you becomes more predictable and puts you on a path towards success. So it's not a random process. It's actually where things come together to create a possible next outcome.
I agree with that. That's exactly what I'd have said.
I think you're making a distinction. I think you're making a technical distinction between the perception of warfare from somebody who is a game creator, and if you put yourself constantly in the feet of the soldiers and their memoirs, their letters, their descriptions of combat, so many soldiers throughout history have described that experience as being inherently chaotic. Because it is to them unpredictable, apart from the predictability they will either at the end of the battle live or die. So in that circumstance, there is a complexity to it. But the experience
it's chaotic
of war,
in the sense of confused as well.
So confused is our compromise word between complexity and chaos. I'm prepared to do that. I get confused over which trousers to wear in the morning.
Well, I can tell.
That's not a chaotic.
In the trench, you say, what a complex situation I find myself in. Say bloody chaos. I could walk in my daughter's bedroom and say, this is bloody chaos.
But it's actually a complex situation. That's a bit worrying.
Where there is more than one possible outcome.
So we've gone down that rabbit hole, and that's been fun. But it comes back to my point, Richard.
It's painful, isn't it?
What's the point? And I am playing devil's advocate. What's the point of going through that complexity or confusion simply to have the end result that your forces are going to be destroyed? Is it a learning process?
Well, your forces aren't going to be destroyed.
The point hang on a minute. We're talking about games which are unwinnable games where defeat is inevitable.
Oh, right. Sorry, we're on. I thought you were talking about games generally. No. What's the point in playing that game? I think there's potential there to learn and understand. If there's a potential there to place yourself in the shoes of the people who are actually doing that and try and understand their motivations and the decisions that they were faced with, and is there against all odds some way of overcoming what happened historically and to make it happen? So let's go back to the Channel Dash, as my friend Nicholas has rightly said. One of those torpedoes could hit. I mean, you only have to look at the Bismarck. That was taken out by a torpedo.
The fate of the Bismarck was determined by a torpedo.
That's right.
Yeah. So would you say in those games that one of the key ingredients has to be the possibility that one side wins?
No. Now, that was one of the items on the shopping list that I presented. You could do it simply to try and get a feel for the desperation at the Alamo.
But just come back. Yeah. So come back to my point. If you remove the possibility that the one torpedo hits, and defeat is inevitable, then you are going through that process of mastering or attempting to master complexity / chaos. What's the point of that when you know that defeat is inevitable?
Again, I have to come back to the history and say you're creating a historical situation which potentially is incredibly evocative. Yeah. I mean, you only have to see from the people on that quay front in Ramsgate yesterday, there was a crowd of about 100 people, many of whom in uniform, but one guy in a white van got out and said to a chap in uniform, "What's going on here, geezer?" And the chap said, "Oh, it's the Channel Dash." And the bloke said, "I'd like to attend that." And he just came along. And you think, blimey, you hear a lot about White Van Man, but I was quite touched by that because, a lot of people have come a long way to pay tributes to former family and people who died. But there were people there who just were touched in that moment by, that is something that's evocative. It's a piece of history. And it could still be inevitable that you're going to lose at the end. But to almost live through representation of that experience is valid in its own right.
Inevitability, something being inevitable is something you can only apply via hindsight. Okay? So you can't say, David versus Goliath, the outcome was what? What's inevitable about the outcome? Well, Goliath is going to stamp this guy into the ground. Okay? The outcome of the Channel Dash is inevitable. Only when you look back on it from the other side. It isn't inevitable when you're climbing into that swordfish and taking off to take on that attack.
Well,
when you believe you've got squadrons of Spitfires supporting you out, is the inevitability only is really something that occurs afterwards.
Yeah. Well, kind of move from the swordfish, because I think that's one of those things that you can have a strike which is successful. Move to Stalingrad, and it's January 1943.
Defeat was inevitable for the Nazis.
Well, it's very difficult to see how the Germans win that because obviously Wintergewitter has been a failure.
But break that action down into component parts, and you will find actions that are not inevitable. You might say strategically, it's as soon as Hitler chooses to invade Russia, then the Second World War is, or whatever.
You're slightly moving the goalpost because
but I'm doing it on purpose because I'm then taking it back to the point at which actually there is a point at which the outcome does not become inevitable.
I thought you were going to go a different way, because I think the other way of looking at it is actually
chaotic and unpredictable.
You are now being chaotic, because I think the other way of looking at those scenarios is that even if the game is set up with an inevitability, you have a progression of to what extent cohesion can be continued, and to what extent that
history is full of situations where people have where something you think is inevitable hasn't happened because something happens in. Rorke's Drift, it's inevitable that the Zulus are going to
that's a great example,
But actually, they don't. Because of a series of events and situations and decisions and chances of luck that mean that actually they hold.
Okay, so a component of those types of games is that rather than judging yourself just against, or in addition to just judging yourself against how you do against a historical situation, you've got to have, as a game, the possibility of success in the end.
No, I don't think so. I think a game can be an exercise in simply refighting something.
You don't have to have it.
You don't have to have it.
No, you don't have to have it.
So you can have a game which is based on inevitability. It's still been a good experience.
Yes, you can, of course.
I thought you just said
that
it's not inevitable.
But then I think, if you're a player and you're playing, you think, oh, this is inevitable. You're just going to go, oh, why bother? But if it's inevitable...
If you're playing Leonidas, it is inevitable. You cannot do anything about it.
Yeah.
But how many wargamers fight Leonidas at Thermopylae? I bet loads have.
Yeah,
it's still inevitable.
Yeah. But it's about how you recreate that and play it, and can you do something that slows it down, or can you create moments within that action of great bravery, or whatever?
Yes,
and that's
exactly.
it, isn't it? That's why you do it.
That is it. That's right.
It's the story
what will the story tell you? What will the game tell you? What narrative will it create that you can say, bloody hell, I was Leonidas at Thermopylae.
I completely agree with
my
that.
lovely hair.
I don't think you need to have...
with the sand in it.
Yeah.
I think as a wargaming experience, you can have fun even if you know you're going to lose. You can have a game where defeat, in a classical sense, is completely inevitable. Because in the same way as Greek tragedy, you know that the hero is going to die. You know that in a Shakespearean tragedy, the hero will always die, because that's the whole point of Lear and Macbeth and Othello and Hamlet. Yeah. The point is the journey that you take. And in a war game, it's similar. You know, those moments of bravery, how long can we retain cohesion? What is the point at which everything falls apart? That's a real Stalingrad moment.
But equally, you can have a war game where the experience is simply historically illuminating, where there's no heroism, where the wheels come off completely and it does all go wrong. And then you can say, bloody hell, I can now understand why that Indian battalion was overrun by the Japanese and just surrendered immediately, and there were just no casualties. And you wouldn't have understood. Previously, you'd have gone, hold on a minute, there's a battalion of 600 men there, and they've got 6 Vickers guns, and they've got 3-inch mortars. They're going to hold them up for several hours. Well, all of a sudden, the Japanese leap out of the Malayan bush, and they're in the place that the Indian battalion commander never expected them to be, and he's completely wrong-footed, and then all of a sudden it's all over.
It makes you look at the detail.
Or, God forbid, you could have a Stuka attack which which stomped on your troops, and you come away from that saying, hold on a minute, that was really painful, but I do now at least understand what that experience must have been like.
And next time out, you might take some different decisions that might mean that if that happens again, you don't get the same outcome.
I was very conscious and agreed with you when you were saying about the support options you take when you're selecting them for chain of command. It's all about trying to stack the odds in your favour and choosing the support options that weigh most heavily on your side of the scales.
Which might involve choosing the ones which actually deny your opponent the ability
doing
to do
something rather than give you an ability to do something.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the game is invalid just because, or it isn't interesting. You may come out of it thinking, God, that was painful as hell. But, and you've said this about the Boer War games, Sydney, that experience was when we first did Talana Hill, and the first we played that was the first battle of the war. We did Talana Hill, and the British were in chaos. And it was a painful. You literally came away from that game thinking, good Lord, that was a hideous experience. But I now understand why that stone wall was important, how those battalions got intermingled, why the pressure, the command pressure they were under. What a fabulous experience. I've really taken something away from that game, which is more tangible than, ha, I won and Nick looks like a turnip because I beat him.
It's very difficult to find a historical account of any commander, using commanders as opposed to just soldiers, but commanders in warfare, if they are broadly being accurate or attempting to be accurate, it's not just a sort of a hagiography, I was wonderful. But when they describe the situations, it's difficult to find an account which says it was all plain sailing and all my plans were perfect.
Well, if you read any novel about warfare, I was going to say, but if you read any novel, what happens is the main hero of the story thinks it's all going swimmingly, and then it all goes wrong, and the rest of the novel is about how he rescues a victory and snatches it from the jaws of defeat. And so
the process of overcoming complexity, overcoming adversity, the process
that's the game.
That is the game.
Yes.
And I think in a lot of war games it's the game, even if it's a situation where both sides are approaching it from the point of view that they possibly have broadly equal chances of success. But if the sides don't have those equal chances of success, it can still be a completely credible game because of the experience that you create.
You can start the game with equal chances of success. Turn 1, Nick brings his Sherman on, I blow it up. All of a sudden, we no longer have an equal chance of success because the scales have tipped from his favour into my favour. So why on earth do we suggest that at the outset of a game, the scales should be perfectly balanced? It can be perfectly legitimate to have imbalanced forces, but a scenario that creates balance by one side having to achieve more than the other. But more importantly, and I don't think that's the point at all, I think that's missing the point, more importantly, it can be perfectly legitimate to have a game in which one side has no chance of victory whatsoever, but nevertheless experiences what happened historically and then gains an understanding of what their historical counterparts were going through.
I think I agree with all of that. I think one of the difficulties is somehow, though, when people are playing a war game, the idea is not a game is competitive, a game should be fair, it's like football or rugby. When events go wrong, sometimes, and you do see it when people you're playing, you know, when things go wrong on the Ancients table. I remember there was a guy who used to play. Every time something went wrong, you used to be a little bit more disheartened, and you were almost like conscious that you were playing the player and you weren't playing the historical event.
Well, that's interesting because we have a force morale mechanism in our rules, and what we often see that with some players that it's their personal force morale that disappears before the other one goes. But that's the test of leadership. Leaders don't give up. That's the point when it's really, really gone wrong. You've got a choice. You go, oh, bollocks, I can't win this, I'm going to surrender. Or you go, no, I'm not having this. I'm pulling my socks up, and I'm going to try and turn this round, and I'm going to fight damn hard. And even if I can't turn it round, I'll go down fighting.
And we saw that in the Bow War games. I remember distinctly, no names, no pact rules, but there were some players who didn't enjoy the experience of losing because they felt that it was a personal identification of the fact that they were rubbish as war gamers, which obviously was not the case. The point of games like that, even if the players don't know, is to place a player in an environment which is uncomfortable or confusing or complex or whatever words we want to use to describe it. But the validity of the experience is actually enhanced by those types of games, I think.
Well, I think also as a gamer you can learn stuff from those situations. You know, the same blokes who played those early Boer War games and made a huge hatch of it were the same blokes who played the same Boer War games 3 years later and were succeeding.
And relieved Ladysmith after 3 years.
Because they'd learnt how to conduct warfare in that theatre. And they'd gone through the same learning mechanism, week by week.
We do bleat on about the Boer War a bit too much, to be honest with you, but it does illustrate the point.
But you see it, people playing Chain of Command.
Perfect.
Always the better players are doing things to stack the odds in their favour every time.
Well, that's been a fantastic discussion. I've really enjoyed that, and I think we've learned a little bit about the games that we like to play.
You're a very good devil's advocate, Sid. That's what we've learned from that.
Shit stirrer, you mean?
Yeah. And you don't know the difference between the word chaos and complex.
Well, we're not going to move to dictionary definitions. It's far too much like
Dictionary Corner with Nick Skinner.
It's far too much like work.
Nixon.
We're going to leave the sofa of sincerity for a few minutes, but we'll be back to discuss a few things which are happening in the world of Lard.
Oh, lovely.
Well, chaps, that was a great discussion. Now we're running out of time a little bit, but before we go, let's see what's happening in the big wide world of Lard. So, Richard, tell us about what's happening in Bristol.
Bristol, 29th of February and the 1st of March, which are 2 days next to each other. It's leap year, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah.
God, I hope people don't propose to me in Bristol. But there we are. 29th of March, we have Winter Wanderlard at Big Bristol Independent Gamers in Bristol. I wouldn't recommend searching on Big Bristol, but there we are. Where I'm going to be presenting Infamy to a discerning audience of Bristolites. Get your thermals on for that. Bristol Independent Gaming can get a bit chilly, but it should be heated up with the joy of loads and loads of people playing London games.
I was going to be at that, but sadly I can't go now because I'm going to be working internationally, mate. However, but I will be back.
On stage in Amsterdam again,
Yeah, that's it. I've booked a repeat date. The following weekend, on the 7th of March, we will be going to Come and Have a Go If You Think You're Lard Enough.
And that's not just you and me, the three.
Well,
three amigos.
It's the three of us. And about another 90-odd people, I think. About 100 people attending, almost. I think Mark's got there. Mark Backhouse is the man behind that, the brains, stroking his white pussycat behind that event. And he's a school teacher, so he's well used to herding cats. And you will be, I will be working with Mark on a Krieg build that he's running that day. Yeah. And you, Richard, you are going to be running the scenario that Jasper and I did at Poldercon.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be heading for Arnhem.
Yeah.
And that'll be great
some Dutch buildings as well.
That's right. I'll probably, at that point in time, I'll probably be running the Chain of Command game using Infamy rules because I've been so immersed in that. But yeah, I'm going to have to relearn Chain of Command to get that. But I'm really looking forward to that.
And then on the 28th and 29th of March, Richard, at the end of March, you're going off to Amsterdam yourself. I
am. It's spring again. I'll be singing again as I head off to Amsterdam. I'm actually going along to a sharp practice weekend in Amsterdam, which I'm taking part in as just Joe Punter.
Nice.
I'm really looking forward to it, actually. It's 1813 is the year. There's a big backstory, which Eltio, who is over there, has set up, which is looks really good. And I bought myself a little Austrian force. Really looking forward to getting them painted. I've got some. Well, I'm not going to say actually, but let's say I've got a nice Austrian force because I don't want to let people. Don't want to let the secret out the bag because I might have a little interesting. Go there. I've got a mix there of Foundry and a Perry's. Actually, I've bought some Perry miniatures which look really funky, and the Foundry ones are really nice. So nice small force. Looking forward to getting that painted up and heading over there. Looking forward to seeing all the guys and gals going over to Amsterdam, which should be a really great fun weekend.
I can certainly recommend some places for you to spend your well-earned money.
Very good. And in April, you've got another trip planned. And is that in Bournemouth?
It is. It's an inaugural weekend of a brand new wargaming holiday centre, which is, absolutely, which is setting up on the south coast. The guys there are looking to run events for about up to 8 participants, and they'll all be based on a specific game. What they're doing for the inaugural event is that they're running a game for Tilly-sur-Seulles in Normandy in 1944 using chain of command in 28mm. And they put a lot of attention to detail into getting this right. They've got hundreds of painted miniatures. Obviously, we're going to be playing big chain of command for that size again. Hand-built terrain, all designed using maps of the battlefield, so the terrain should be really, really historical. And they're refighting the great battle there, where you've got the 8th Armoured Division throwing themselves up against Panzer Lehr. They've got
tough game.
All the figures and models based on the units are there. So we've got the 24th Lancers there with their Shermans, for example. We've got some Cromwells. So that's going to be great.
Is that 2 days of gaming? Is it?
I believe it is. Yeah, it is. It's a whole weekend. This is their big launch event. Where apparently they've invited along a host of wargaming glitterati. I think I must have been invited to put the bins out or something. But
we didn't make the list then, Sid.
No, clearly not.
No. There is a limit. Let's face it.
When you're down to the F-list celebrities,
they're going to be going. They're going to be going live for bookings in the middle of April, and you can have a look online at wargamingholidays.com. Wargaming Holidays is one word. So super excited for Craig and the gang down there who are getting that ready at the moment, working hard to get that all set up. Really can't wait to do that. And I think one of the great joys is going to be playing Big Chain of Command, because you can get some fabulous actions with Big Chain of Command. We've always enjoyed playing our games on that, so that it will be nice for me to go along and play a game.
And if you Google Big Cock in Bournemouth, do you get that?
Probably very similar to what you get if you Google Big Bristols, but
well, of course, once you bust your internet, then the next thing to think about is the 18th of April, which is Salute, when I think we've got a whole lot of Lard going on. So what's happening there precisely? What
my
game?
birthday weekend. That's what's happening there.
Happy
so you'll not be coming. We should be spending it with your family.
We'll be giving a special shout out on the Oddcast for anybody who can bring a cake.
I'd love to see 70 people turn up with cakes and you have to eat them all.
That's the game.
We're going to be at Salute. We're going to be big at Salute this year.
3 games.
And what are they?
Infamy, I'm running. Dave Brown, the godfather of wargaming, Housewife's favourite, is going to be running O Group. And my rotund chum here is going to be running Chain of Command in Arnhem. So
we're running it in London, but set in Arnhem.
Yeah. So it's a lard fest.
And it might be the game that it might be the Fan Panzers again.
It might be.
That's good.
You've got to get your money's worth.
That's right.
And you've spent £8 on printed models.
It's worth saying also that scenario is actually going to be in WSS magazine. So we really are.
You're milking it, aren't you?
Doubling down. Well, that sounds terrific. It's always a great weekend. And then the weekend after, 25th of April, it's Warlord in Durham with the usual combination of great games and fun in the historic headquarters of Durham Wargames Group. So that's always a fun weekend.
Always a great weekend. A combination of fun, laughter, wargamings, and a hideous quantity of alcohol.
Well, talking of squeezing things in, that's all we've got time to squeeze into the Oddcast. Thanks very much for listening, and thanks to Rich, Nick, for their time tonight and for their thoughts. And a big thanks to my great friend Roger Barraclough and his band, who are now going to play us out. And thanks to you all for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
In tonight's show, Sidney Roundwood was joined by Nick Skinner and Richard Clark, with music by Roger Barraclough and his band.